Welcome everyone to the webinar. And basically, the webinar is going to be covering what skills will be needed to succeed in an AI-centric channel team. And we all know that AI is having an enormous impact on what we're doing. That impact is going to continue. It is going to significantly change the roles that we have, the way in which we operate, and the things that we're able to do. And we are going to be covering that in the webinar. So we'll be diving into the detail and hopefully providing really valuable insights on where you need to be, the skills you need to acquire, and also hopefully where you acquire them from. But before we start, just a few housekeeping things. So Sarah, a reminder, Partner TechX is the only event that brings together all of the companies providing technology as part of your partner tech stack. It's a really, really important event. It's going to give you an incredible insight into the technology, where it's headed, what it's able to do. And we have a fabulous discount which applies until the next Friday, the 19th of December. So if you register before then, you'll be able to register for the relatively low price of just $495. It'll be an incredible investment in your future attending the show, and also enormously help your companies understand what's available and what's happening. So without further ado, again, as I said, just type in the questions. Feel free, join in, engage with us in terms of the discussion on this very, very important topic. And we have a terrific panel for you today with very different skills. And our first panelist is Emily Hardin of Maritz. And she's the Associate General Counsel in their legal department. As an in-house lawyer, she works closely with all aspects of the engagement solutions business, and her primary responsibilities are commercial contracting and counseling their team on data privacy, risk compliance, IP, and all things technology. So, Emily, if you'd like to just tell us a little bit about Maritz.
Absolutely. So Maritz, at our core, we're about helping companies grow their business by motivating and engaging their people. So that can look really different depending on what part of our business you're interacting with. We have a lot of offerings spanning from channel incentive programs, B2C rewards, incentive trips, and business events. In fact, I just came back from our internal incentive trip. I got to go to Riviera Maya in Mexico, and it was absolutely amazing. So we do a lot of really fun stuff. And the longest thing we've been doing is rewards. We have about 130 years of experience in incentives and rewards. But today we're very much integrated into the modern channel incentive marketplace, helping our clients deliver world-class rewards with a modern platform. So we help them answer questions like, what should our incentive program look like? How do we engage our partners? And how do we build loyalty?
Fabulous. And our second panelist is Stephen Kellam from Structured. And Stephen has 20 plus years experience in the channel. He's been an MSP, president of an MDF company, and a channel chief. He's really passionate about partner experience and the value of purpose-built AI. And he's an avid fitness enthusiast. He's completed the Alcatraz Golden Gate and Kona swims. So Stephen, over to you. Tell us a little bit about Structured.
Sure, Rod, glad to. Hello, everybody. Boy, what a difference a year makes. I would say a year ago, I would have said, hey, Structured is the leading TCMA PMAP, as stated by Forrester in their WAVE report. But today, I think it's so different. Now it's about being the first fully AI full platform, really engine for channel marketing and partner go to market motions, right? It's changed so much with AI. So in short, we're built to scale partner revenue by helping partners accelerate go-to-market demand generation activities by using generative and agentic AI. And we're obviously going to talk a lot about that today. And the cool thing is it's all guided by the brand all along the way. I'm sure we're going to talk about guardrails as we go through this as well, right? So we deliver a unified way for vendors and partners to collaborate, create, localize, translate in over 130 languages, content, launch co-branded campaigns, track leads, follow up with prospects, all powered by AI, right? It really has turned into, we're going to talk about this a lot today, just an just ask world, right? But I think we're going to talk about two. I think this is really our mantra, is you have to do two things for partners, even in the AI world. You have to make it really, really simple for them to come in and to be able to execute. And that was some of the problems historically with TCMA, but now it's gotten so simple in a just ask world. And then you have to add value. And that value is you really need to help the partners and vendors create hyper-personalized content. Like no partner wants to sound like another partner. And I think we're going to talk about some of that today as well, too. And then I think the last thing, you have to deliver reporting and analytics. I think we're going to talk a lot about that today, too, because you can do a lot of things, and you can create a lot with AI, but then what do you do with it? I think that reporting and analytics is key to everything. Sorry, Rod, that was 1 minute and 17 seconds. I went a little over.
I'll grab the 17 seconds back from you later on, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you.
So our third panelist is Cosmo Mariano from Unifyr. And Cosmo is a seasoned SaaS executive who's led customer success, support, and partner alliance across multiple transformation cycles, including AI-driven shifts in product operations and partner ecosystems. He's a practitioner who works closely with major enterprise channel programs, companies like AWS, Cisco, Atlassian, etc., to design scalable partner experiences and co-creation models that accelerate value delivery. He's a Toronto-based woodworker who designs and builds furniture in his spare time, usually far more complex than he intended when he first started. So, Cosmo, tell us a little bit about Unifyr.
Absolutely, and I mentioned the seasoned must be referenced to the white hair I've got coming out. But happy to talk about Unifyr. We're an ecosystem go-to-market platform. You've probably heard of us. We provide both PRM and TCMA modules. We help channel leaders run smarter, more connected partner programs. We were recently recognized as a leader in the IDC MarketScape for partner relationship applications. And, that validation really reflects the shift we're driving in the industry, along with organizations like Steve's. Your channel organizations today, you're not just managing partners, you're managing ecosystems. And really the challenge of that is doing it at scale without drowning in administrative, friction, right? Unifyr One, our enterprise platform, it's built for what we call channel orchestration. So we bring sales, marketing, enablement, and engagement tactics, whether those are other, like Emily's organization, their platform into a single unified workflow. So leaders can see precisely what's working, attribute revenue, grow with confidence. So I think a big part of our differentiation is how we're embedding artificial intelligence directly into your workflow. So our first AI layer, I'm going to call it our first, powers everything from content generation to predictive analytics to agentic automation, but with strict data protection so that you never have to compromise the trust that you've built in your ecosystem. I need some water. Ultimately, our mission is pretty simple. We want to give you as channel leaders the infrastructure to accelerate partner-driven pipeline, expand market reach, and operate with far more clarity than you've been able to do before.
Brilliant. Cosmo, thank you very much. And our fourth panelist is Mark Emanuelson, and he is the industry principal for high tech at Vistex. And Mark helps high tech companies transform channel complexity into strategic advantage through intelligent, data-driven solutions that optimize pricing, drive demand, and protect margins. He has over 25 years of experience in the technology channel business, and he brings a unique perspective, having operated both as a vendor and a partner. Originally from Silicon Valley, Mark has lived and worked across more than 50 countries, and now he is enjoying everything colorful Colorado has to offer. So, Mark, tell us briefly what about Vistex.
Well, it's delighted to be with you today, Rod, and thank you for everyone for joining this webinar today. I am Mark Emanuelson, the industry principal for Vistex, and we are a channel revenue management platform. We come from a heritage of ERP, so we have deep expertise in enterprise resource planning and financial models. We started 25 years ago as a solution extension partner with SAP, and then today we offer cloud solutions for channel software management and services for many, many of the leading high-tech vendors. And as a software provider, we are investing in AI, and we are helping our clients to leverage AI to self-service for insight, really turning manual efforts into automation, turning lack of insight into scenarios and ROI. And so we work with our clients to help improve their productive use and show ROI around their channel programs. So pleasure to be with you here today.
Brilliant. So let's get cracking. And Stephen, if I can ask the first question to you. When you think about the shift to AI-centric channel teams, what's the single biggest change you see in the skills required by people in those teams that they'll need to acquire over the next 12 to 24 months?
So I think one of it is something. The first one is something that they have to acquire. I think the second one is what we're going to realize as we start to see AI being used. I think the first skill they need to do and need to understand is how to leverage AI and how to use AI. I know that sounds really simple, but it's not, right? I talk to people all the time. They're in different stages of enablement. And I know a lot of people are looking for, well, where do I go? How do I start? How do I educate myself? So I think the first part is you got to get educated, right? And the things that you need to do to understand what AI can do for you in your role. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do a quick call out here. I don't know if you guys can see this, but the first 30 days with AI. This is a book that was written by Catherine Rose and Julie Easton. Can you guys see that? Because if you want specifics, this is a fantastic book. And this one is around channel marketing, but they have one just from AI in particular. And it helps everyone understand what they can do, how to run prompts, how to work with AI, which AI system do they use, Gemini, do they use Claude, do they use Channel GPT? You got to get educated on this. So I think as we become educated in these roles and start to learn what it can do for us from an execution perspective, and I know we're all going to talk about strategy later on, I think it's what it's going to reveal is the strategic capabilities of the individuals. So once we've removed, hey, I have to pull this spreadsheet together, or hey, I need to go find this data, or what can I do, which by the way, which is half of a QBR, right? 3/4 of searching for data. Now it's going to be, okay, how do I strategize? What do I do with that data? How do I relate to that partner? Now it's that real H to H, and it's going to reveal who is really, really good at that strategic side. And I think it changes the skill sets, right? We're going to have to assume that anybody who is successful is going to master the AI side. You're just going to have to. There's not enough time anymore. If you're going to do that, you just have to be able to do it. But what's up for grabs is who's really good on the strategic side, and who's really good with working with the partners, and who's really good at thinking and analyzing that data. And by the way, I'll stop. But my last thought is you can still use that AI in that strategy. Like I'm sure Cosmo and the rest of us, like we were looking at this event or doing this, we're like, okay, from a strategic perspective, we're going to use AI and see how that goes. So first, get educated, learn everything you can do in your role. And then second, when you're in the strategic side of, determine what you can do, what you can do well, and go ask AI how you can do it better.
Excellent. And Cosmo, let me bring you into this. So I'm trying to acquire the skills. Where should I be looking for those skills? Get specific in terms of the skills I should be looking for and the places I should be looking for help on this.
Skills and the places. So really for me, it's become more about, it's the shift between execution. So Steve just talked a lot about execution, but I think of it, we want to zoom out a little bit, from execution to orchestration. And my lens often is around the innovation piece. So how you're innovating your operations and how you're innovating for partners. So for example, one of the colleagues that I work with at AWS, she's actively redesigning workflows like onboarding, campaign execution, and reporting using AI and agentics, right? And so she's transforming her day-to-day operating model so that her team can focus on higher value partner engagement. So, Stephen's right. So you want to learn the tools, and we can all start, if you don't know a lot, use even the foundational models like, Claude and ChatGPT, but make sure you talk to your organization and make sure you're allowed to put, company data. But even if you're not allowed to do that, find a way to get access to these foundational models and start looking at your internal workflows and your internal role, and start there and start thinking of breaking down these jobs that you do on a day-to-day basis, and figure out which ones you can start to use different models for, because every model has different strengths and weaknesses. And in terms of that AI literacy, you need to start to understand what models are good at and what they're not good at, and where they break down and how you can use them. And as you build that muscle, you'll gain confidence, and you'll start to see a path towards how you can start to do what my friend at AWS does. Really start to take on the bigger workflows, the bigger use cases. And that's where there are, a lot of online resources. The truth is, one of the biggest ones that I go to all the time is just AWS has all kinds of free training. And Stanford, I don't know if you know this, but they just took their entire AI course that used to be a paid course for, $20, $30, $40,000, and made that all available for free on YouTube. So, the world is, thank you very much. First Days of Channel Marketing. And read the book. So that, there are a lot of opportunities to learn, but make it practical, look at your role, and start building some muscle in your role and within your team.
Can I, one quick just thought on that, and then turn it over to everybody else. I think, Cosmo, what you just identified is called the AI execution gap. And everything that I was talking about in terms of the execution side and learning how to do that, and all this great content gets created, then the question in you, Rock Cosmo, is what do you do with it? And from a strategic perspective, and there's a big gap there. And those who can understand that and learn that and make the most out of that data, whether it's with AI or just a human function, they're the folks who are really going to succeed and are going to close that gap. And by the way, that'll get us into the agentic side, right? We can talk about conversational. We can talk about generative AI. Now we're getting into the agentic side, right? Going from talking about it to building something to doing something about it.
Okay. And let me cut across. Cosmo, if you could just pop into the chat for everyone the course you just mentioned, because I think there's going to be a lot of really valuable information coming out of this that people are going to be able to pick up from the chat. So if you could just pop that course in there so everyone can pick up on that and go find it. And a question for Emily. I know you come at it from a very different perspective. There's a misconception that channel professionals have about AI and their roles. And there are other roles that I know you're very keen on promoting that we don't normally think of when it comes to AI. So Emily, if you'd like to come in and comment on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the big opportunities that I see, especially for those of us who aren't technologists, I'm not a technologist, but I've been deeply involved in a lot of conversations about AI at my company, and not just from the perspective of a lawyer dealing with regulations, but also about how to champion responsible AI. So when you're thinking about your company and the skills that you have, you are a domain expert in your company, your brand's values, your programs, your platforms, and you know what makes them special. You also know the challenges that you're facing. So when an AI solution is being deployed, there's a lot of value that you can provide, just like Stephen and Cosmo were saying, from a strategic perspective about how to ensure that we are fulfilling our company's values as we continue to evolve, as technology continues to change. So some things that I would be thinking about: transparency. How are we communicating internally and externally about how we're using AI? And if we have to tell people how we're using it, how does that affect our brand, right? So you could pretty easily go to ChatGPT right now and write every single piece of content for your brand in 5 seconds, but it's not going to sound like your brand, right? It's not going to have the special sauce that differentiates you from your competitors. So there's a lot to think about there. I also think about reliability. So there's a lot of important processes that take place in your platforms, right? And in your programs. It's probably a really low-hanging fruit for automation whenever you have some sort of manual process that's taking place. However, how do you account for irregularities, for bad data, for unexpected inputs? Even a 1% error rate can be very detrimental to your users and to your participants. So if you can be thinking about those things early on and asking those hard questions about how are we going to know if we're getting bad data or the inputs aren't what we were expecting, that could be a huge benefit down the road. And I'll just make one more comment. I would also be thinking about fairness. You know better than anyone who are your end users and what is their level of comfortability with interacting with new systems. We are all at different places in our journey with AI, and so are your program participants. So if you're going to replace what was a human or more manual interface with them interacting with an AI, I think AI chatbots are a great example of this. A lot of companies are looking at replacing their human customer service agents with AI agents or AI bots. That might be great for the bottom line, but it might not be great for the user experience. If they're not getting the answer they need and they're hitting a wall with that I think you're going to start hearing a lot of complaints. So these are some questions that you can be thinking about when you're hearing about new AI solutions to help your company really be strategic with where and how it's deployed to protect your company's interest in your brand.
Excellent. And Mark, if I can bring you in, a lot of people are worried about their jobs. They're worried about the effect AI is going to have on those roles. If you looked at AI related skills and the skills that people should build, what would be the two AI related skills that you would see as absolute priority for everyone on the webinar?
Well, I'm really bullish on AI. It's game on now, and we've seen the big transition over the last couple of years from, people asking questions, thinking about how are we going to leverage this, doing some small pilots to now the mainstream tech companies are using AI in a big way. And we're doing that too at Vistex. We are investing in AI features in our platform because what we see is that there's a need for people in the channel who have more skills around, say, data science or IT infrastructures and workflows, people that can optimize workflow management, and then making sure that your data is quality and secure. And then with our platform, we help our clients to do just that. So it all adds up. And so I would invest some time if you're a channel manager in really understanding data, understanding data science around it, or understanding workflows. Look at the manual things happening in your organization today. Either might be on spreadsheets, it might be different siloed systems that you're using. How could you bring that all into one place so that you can gain insight into your channel program and you can report to senior management the ROI you're delivering? So invest some time there. We're putting a lot of effort at Vistex in conversational AI, which we've talked about, like chatbots and other things, to talk to the system to gain insight and to create claims or help your partners to use chat with AI. But we're also putting a lot of emphasis into data analysis, into bringing data sets into one system so that then you can query the data to do scenarios and you can look at, if I did this incentive, what results could I get? Who are my most profitable and loyal partners? And AI can help you to do that. And so if you're looking at improving your skills, look at data science, look at workflow management, look at how IT infrastructures will give you insight into the full data set of performance of your channel program.
Excellent. And Cosmo, if you're looking at this, if you're starting, how do you suggest people begin to get to grips with this? What are the start points? Should they be just experimenting with products like ChatGPT? Should they be doing it in their personal life as well as their business life? How do you begin to get to grips with and get to understand what's going on?
Yeah, I think I was fortunate that a couple of years ago when it first came out, I was one of those people who, just got myself a ChatGPT account. And when I first started, I mean, I was like everyone else. I was thinking, this is pretty good, but it wasn't anything special. But I got to tell you, years later, I put everything into, I have a few of them that I use now, and I put my personal life, I put my work life in, I put all kinds of context in, and I have a lot of conversations about what I'm thinking. Dare I say it's almost even a therapist to me sometimes, right? So it's really for me to understand that kind of constant interaction started to give me a view into what the future was going to look like. And not only did it allow me to start to see opportunities in work and in my life, but it also built up a heck of a database. Like my GPTs now have a lot of context, right? So this is, if my boss is watching this, when I was asked to do my performance review a few weeks ago, I took the questions and I put it in my chat GPT. And I said, okay, here's and it told, and it gave me, a lot of those ideas that I've been working on with it and the projects that I've been working on. And then I refined. And that interaction time and exploration is going to help you really just figure out what this is all about. And then you'll follow the paths that make sense for your career, for your job, for whatever you're working on, for your passions. I mean, Rod, just as a final point, I've sent Rod designs of furniture that I've created with just for fun using artificial intelligence. And it's pretty creative stuff. I could never build it, but it looks pretty cool.
And Stephen, we see more and more of the execution tasks being taken over by AI. So if we're moving there, we're moving to a more strategic role. What are the sorts of skills, what are the sorts of roles that you see being fundamental to someone's success career-wise moving forward?
Yeah, and I'll go back. I think Mark sort of answered that, right? Let me talk about a couple of things. One, I like what Cosmo was talking about. Like, how do you start to get into it? But I do think it helps to have a plan. I think that's really cool in that book. It's the first 30 days on that execution and make it somewhat systematic. And that book is really, really helpful, but it gives you ideas what to do on a daily basis as you progress. And you could be, some folks, maybe Cosmo would go through the whole thing in like 3 days. I think I read it over a couple of days on that, but it really helps you decide what you want to do and creates, I think it creates some security so that you feel really comfortable going. I think someone brought this up. I'm using Gemini and Nano Banana, and you can start to see, am I in the images world and what am I trying to create? It depends on your role. Or am I using Chat GPT 5 and I'm looking more for analytics on this, or am I using Claude? And I think, as Cosmo was saying, you can start to experiment on that. The folks that I've seen most successful have sort of put a regiment together and then sort of applied it to that. And Rod, the reason I'm talking about that is because it's hard to be strategic when you're worried about the execution side. You have to get good at that or have someone that's good at that to get you there. And then I think it ties into what Mark was saying. Then it's all about the data and the workflows. Here's the thing. I'm not a data scientist. So for me, I could see all this information. Absolutely fascinating story. We had a client that all of a sudden they started to use our channel GPT across hundreds of partners. And the data they were getting for the partners, now you have tens of thousands of pieces of information coming back. It was Mark, if you don't have a way to, from a data analytics perspective, to figure out how to take and measure that. And by the way, AI can do that for you, right? And this is the, Catherine talked about a book, you go from the 101 to the 201 to the 301, right? You've got all this data. Now, strategically, you can say, hey, analyze this for me this way and have the AI start to put it out so that you can start to do something with it. Because here's the interesting thing. If you do the execution right, you're going to get more windows, more insight and more windows into what partners are thinking across all their programs than you've ever been able to scale. Does anybody talk about doing surveys anymore? I know surveys are nice, right? But now if you have AI interaction coming in your tool or whatever you're working with, now you have all of this data. Now you just got to figure out what to do with it. And once again, I think AI can help you do that. And then you bring in a data scientist maybe to do that for you, and then use it in your analytics and what you know about the channel and what you know about the partner. Look, you still need to know about the partner's skills. You need to know what they're good at, what they're bad at, what they're trying to achieve. Now you can take this data and all this analytics and apply it to what you know about the market. And I think those are the people who are going to be really successful.
Yeah, maybe I could just add to that, Rod. I think it all comes down to the data, of course, and insight. I'm working with a client now who is heavily using spreadsheets and having people in low-cost markets crunch through spreadsheets to manage all their promotions. They're under some pressure because they've been asked to cut across the company and save budgets. And of course, the channel budget is a major budget line, but they don't know where to cut because they don't have the insight into which programs are performing and which programs aren't performing. It takes many weeks to pull that together and pull that out of different spreadsheets and get data. Now, with AI, you should be able to query that within minutes or seconds. We've rolled out a feature on our platform, in our reporting platform, which allows you to use chat and talk to the system around the kind of reporting and insights you want, and then it creates the charts for you. I mean, that's a game changer if you're trying to show ROI to your management. So, try those things and see how you can be a lot more productive and show more value around your channel program using AI.
Does anybody want to talk to all of you? Sorry, Rod. We haven't talked about RAG at all, so you can't. I don't know how we go through that. And by the way, part of learning through all this is how do you augment that LLM, right? Because Mark, you're talking about this. If you want to analyze it or you want to do something with data, what can you add to that LLM to make it successful? Now, that's something someone needs to get really good about. We didn't even talk about integrations, right? Because if you think of LLM as a copywriter, it's like the greatest copywriter in the world. I call mine Paula. She's great. She's an entity. I talked to her about it. But she's only as good as the information that I put on top of that, right? So not only do you need to know how to do prompts and how to work with it, but you need to figure out very quickly how to augment that LLM with all the data that you need, right? And I think that's the key to success.
Okay. And Cosmo, bringing you into this, what advice have you got to help a channel manager to become fluent in the basics, the prompting, the model selection, tool usage, and through that become a really valuable member of the team?
Again, and I hate to be a broken record, but you take the courses. There's lots of education out there, and it's learning about things that you don't know. It's just AI is nothing different than what we experience in life, right? In all these other aspects of our life. Go read, and then put it into practice. Take a course, watch a video, and then put it into practice and see what your outputs are. Because when Steve was just talking about AI and Mark about data, we run a lot of that now, right? Because AI is great at analyzing huge amounts of data and turning it hopefully into insight. But AI still hallucinates, and when we run reports, and it's not just us, you got to check it, and the data has to make sense because it will make mistakes. It'll pull sources that you may not even know. For instance, you might say, "Oh, I'm going to add an AI agent to my PRM, and I'm going to have it, and then I'm going to query it and ask it for reporting on the last sales trends or the last, campaigns." It could start if you've got campaigns in there that are 4 years old and haven't been taken out or updated. It'll start to surface that. So controlling the data is really important, and understanding what is output, and then being able to run the sniff test on that. Is it any good? And so, at its basic form, it's running these types of queries yourself on what's available to you. If you're not a data scientist or a machine learning engineer, and learning about the basics of what AI is really good at, comes back to that AI literacy that we talked about at the beginning.
Okay. And I'm going to bring you into this in a moment, Emily. One of the things I was talking to Microsoft, they are encouraging absolutely everyone in the company to experiment with AI, to build their own agents. They're saying, here are the tools. Here's the tool set. I think for everyone on the call, you need to encourage your companies to allow you to have access to these tools. There is another side to it, and that is that we need to be careful with what we're doing. And I'm going to bring Emily in to talk about some of the guardrails. But also, I think there are new positions that Emily alluded to earlier on in the call. There are going to be superstars whose basic role inside the organization is to create and maintain those governance structures. So, Emily, everyone's experimenting. Everyone needs to experiment to make this happen. How do you put those guardrails in place?
Yeah, I mean, this is the million-dollar question I think a lot of companies have been struggling with in the early stages of AI. I don't know if anybody remembers a couple of years ago when ChatGPT sort of just burst onto the scene. It seemed like basically out of nowhere, suddenly these tools went from maybe something to play with, just like Cosmo was saying, to something that could be really useful for businesses. But were tons of questions early on about data security, about reliability, about what did we have the ability to put into the system, what did we not, and those questions are really tough. I think from my perspective, some of the guardrails that I would be thinking about at this stage, I imagine most of your companies now have some sort of policies around what you can put into the tool, what you can't. So those questions have been mostly resolved at this point. But there are still some pretty fundamental questions to be thinking about. And I think we can see this from where the regulations are going. Just interesting sort of legal context. There are jurisdictions, depending on where you are, that already have laws about AI. In the US, a number of states do. You might see news in the next couple of days. They've been saying there might be an executive order trying to get rid of all those state laws. There are a number of other countries who have universal laws on AI. It doesn't look like that's going to happen in the US. But what we can see from these regulations that I think is super interesting to be thinking about as you're trying to understand what are the risks that I should be really concerned about is the controls that these laws are trying to put into place in these very early days of AI, right? So one of the things that the law has been focusing on is AI systems that make consequential decisions. You'll see this if you look into the EU AI Act. So what's a consequential decision? Think about things like, do you get a job that you applied for? Does your resume get looked at? Do you get a loan that you applied for? Decisions that have a material impact on your life, and that would be very detrimental to you if they went one way or the other. So for these use cases, and I know your companies may not give out loans, but you probably do make some sort of financial decisions that impact your partners. So it's worth thinking about where there could be an impact on somebody's financial position or where a decision is being made by an automated system. How do we make sure that there is a human in the loop where there needs to be so that there can be some kind of controls and balances? How do you make sure that you have the ability to audit, right? So that you can go back at a record of all of those decisions and see if there are mistakes being made. Because like I said before, like even a 1% error rate, 99% accurate is really accurate, but 1% can also be extremely detrimental to your program. So those are one of the things I'm thinking about. Where do we need to have humans in the loop? Where are the decisions really important? In some places, it's maybe less important to have a human in the loop because the things that you're making, it's not really going to hurt anyone if it's not right. If you're making a graphic for an internal slideshow, if the pictures are a little bit off, that's probably not super risky, right? So maybe that's a place where you don't need to be spending a lot of time looking at it again. Another thing that you might want to be thinking about is where might labeling and disclosures be required to your end users? Because that could be pretty impactful to your brand. So if you are using AI to generate content, and maybe one day the law requires you to state that it was generated using AI, how does that make your company look? I mean, it's just a question. It may not be good, it may not be bad, but it's something to be thinking about. And if you have an AI chatbot or users interacting with an AI system, if you have to tell them that it's AI, how does that impact their experience? And how does that impact their view of your brand? Especially as companies are going to become more and more reliant on integrating this into more different parts of their business. I think those are questions that any business professional can be thinking about is where do we need to have humans in the loop and how do we need to be thinking about how we talk about this to our customers and our end users?
If I can add to that, I want to give a very specific example around what Emily's talking about. You know, a very simple use case or scenario that can happen is how do you explain to a partner why they were denied or MDF funds or what the decision around the amount of MDF was made. You know, it's just something simple like that. Do you have the fluency? Again, there's that word again to understand if you didn't make the agentic the agent or the AI decision. do you understand how that decision was made, how the AI made that decision? And can you explain it and communicate that to a partner? Because, right now you may only have one or two AI, engines kind of running tasks for you. But in a world later where we're surrounded by them and decisions are being made and actions are being taken, again, I'm going to talk about being the orchestrator. Do you understand the music and the what instruments are playing and where they fit in, and can you explain that to everyone, your bosses, your partners, and everyone? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to lose that trust. And so, that for me is to go back is one of the biggest skills you can start to tune into is, can you get an understand of the system that's running so that you can articulate it to the decision making and orchestration to others.
Maybe I'd just like to add a point here. I think that's very good, Cosmo. And something Emily said about the 1% difference, right? If there's a 1% error, that could have a huge material impact on your channel program. We work with leading high-tech companies that are spending tens of millions of dollars in channel incentives, and a 1% difference in margin for them makes a huge difference in what's happening with the bottom line and what's happening with their investment in the channel program. And so one of the things we do is we use AI, we help our clients use AI to actually improve the data, because we're getting data into our system from multiple sources, and we use AI and data flow to actually improve the accuracy of the data. And so that way we help to close that gap, to have a data in one system. But let's face it, I mean, AI, the cat's out of the bag, right? The horse is bolted from the station, from the stables, right? It's the expectations that your partners will have in the marketplace is going to be around AI enablement. They're going to want to be able to do business with you more easily. They're going to want to query things in the middle of the night in a self-service environment and find out what's happening with their claims, and using AI to go through very complex systems. So it's better to get in front of that than to have to react. And that's where, software vendors like us and your other platforms that you work with can help you. And so it's best to really get all in at this time.
Yeah, a couple things I'll add to that. One is, I think, Emily, I think your points are spot on. But Mark, you were talking about that. There's still people who are using spreadsheets. If you want to talk about error rates, I'm sorry, the cat is out of the bag. We're moving to AI, and at least we're going to be able to look at it. And how many people do you talk to that are like on spreadsheets? And so I think it's a great opportunity anyways. And we just need to get really, really good at it and work through it. I agree with everything you're saying, but I would take that all day long over the validity of a spreadsheet.
We know that humans make mistakes too. It's not
Well,
like
that's what I'm saying.
are doing...
moving in that direction.
Yeah.
I think this gets into, my final point is, if I was going to say something, it would be no work slop, validate and refine. And I think you have to use the same thing on the data. Nothing drives me more crazy than someone copies and pastes something from AI and sticks it out there and doesn't even bother to take out the little markings that make it AI. So look, there's a lot of things I think we can do to work on that, but we're just gonna have to get better at that.
I would love to double down on that, and as a call out on what's shifting, right? The way we work is shifting, or at least the way I work has shifted. I used to really even pride myself on how much of something I could build and make it perfect. I was the kid who wrote their final draft of their essay rather than iterate 14 different essays. Well, actually, I did do a lot of that, but I want it perfect, right? And I would put my own brain into it, and then let the iterations kind of happen afterward. I didn't put a lot of time into the proofreading and whatnot, but that's all switched, right? Now you can have AI do 80% of the work, especially if you built up context. And I still even think of the big motions that we're doing, like even onboarding or any of these big kind of agents that you might build, whether it's small for personal use or large for your business motions. AI can do 80% of that work, and we need to spend time putting our brains in the iterating part. The sniff test, does it make sense? Is it logical? Do I have original thinking in here? Am I bringing my personal context and a point of view? Am I incorporating the goals of the organization, the goals of partners? That's where you can add, bring your value into that. And every single piece, to Steve's point, don't just produce it in AI and send it off. Bring your originality to the iterating part and make it valuable there.
Look, I think that goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. This is going to be revealed. It's the skill set that you're going to need on the H2H side, on the strategy side, because it's easier to edit than it is to create, and all that stuff's going to get done. So we need to buck up and figure out how to do exactly what you're talking about, and put our own skills into it. And I think it's going to reveal who's really good at that.
And I think one of the fascinating things, I had a great conversation with a channel leader last week, and I said, "What's the biggest challenge you face with the team?" And his answer was very simple. He said, "Rod, we want the team to be more strategic. We're able to answer our partners' questions much faster than we've ever done before. We're able, therefore, to have a more meaningful discussion with the partner about the strategic future." He said, "The biggest single gap I have in my team is finance skills. They are unable to go into the partner and really understand the partner's business and how the partner makes money, and therefore build a business plan as a result of that." So I think it's not just the AI skills. The AI skills mean you need to build skills in other areas, like finance, like the skills that Emily has talked about. And I think what's going to happen in the channel team as we move forward is there's going to be some really interesting opportunities to build those kinds of skills. If we also look, based on what Emily says, if the US deregulates and countries like Japan, EMEA, etc., continue with AI regulation, that's going to have an enormous impact on the way we build software, where the software is going to be bought, because it's going to have to abide by the regulations in the different countries. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunities, a lot of skills which we can bring to the table, which will make us really valuable for our teams. And so I think we need to look very closely internally. Where are we headed? What does that mean? And how can I build not just the AI skills, but the other skills that surround that to make me a valuable member of the team? Sorry, Mark, I cut across you.
Well, no, I agree with that, Rod. And you've been a very good watcher on what's happening in the channel for many decades, like I have as well, and many of us on this call. It can be a scary time right now, right? We see layoffs, we see downsizing, we see pressures on the business, people wanting to do more with less. I've talked to companies every day, and they're being asked to be more productive using AI, but then at the same time receiving pressure to cut budgets or to cut teams. And that's scary, but we've worked in high tech for a long time, and there's always waves of innovation. And right now we're at the crest of one of the biggest waves, and that's AI. And so invest your time in getting skilled up, and you will be able to ride the wave to the next level. There are going to be dislocations. There are going to be jobs that get moved out of the organization that are focused on manual efforts. But if you can get in front of that with AI tools and productivity tools, you'll be winning hearts and minds, not only with management, but you'll also make your partners more productive. And partner loyalty has always been a key metric that you want to influence in the channel. Being easier to do business with, finding information that you need, helping evolve your business model, as Rod was talking. Those are all things that you can help your partners with and be more productive using AI and insight into where to go next. And so that's what we help our clients with. And reach out to your vendors, the software platforms that you work with. They're building AI features all over the place, and they can be a great source of best practices, as well as navigating the regulatory issues that we talked about earlier, because they have to do that as going concerns. So I think I'm bullish on AI. I think this is another transition period in tech, and we emerge larger and more successful on the other side.
Hey, Mark, I think real quickly, I think what you nailed something about for the partners. If you learn those AI skills, we now have to train the partners. What are partners bad at? They're bad at digital marketing. They're bad at AI skills, data literacy. And then, Rod, you got to tie that on to finance. I think there's a great opportunity not only to be strategic, but then to take some of that AI literacy and enable partners. I said that earlier. Was it Cosmo? Look, we've gone from enabling people on how to use our platform to enabling them AI so they can use the platform. That is a very, very different kind of education, right? And I think those skills are going to be in big demand.
Yeah.
Excellent. We're almost out of time. So I just want a quick question, same question for every panelist. We've covered a lot of ground on the call. We also have a great doc that we're going to be sending to everyone after the call, which lists a whole raft of AI resources for people. It's actually too big to put in the chat on Zoom, it turns out. So we'll be sending that to everyone on the call. But Cosmo, you are front and center for me at the moment. If there's one thing you'd like to leave the audience with on the skills needed to succeed in an AI world, what is that one thing? I'm going to start doing it tomorrow. What am I going to start doing?
So many, but I'm gonna go off our talk track from that we've discussed, and after this discussion, I'm starting to lean towards take what you know, right? Because one thing that you all know very well is the workflows. We're all doing it manually. The way your program works now, and how to orchestrate it manually. And really, this is not much different than cars that people drive going to automated driving, cars. Everything has to be broken down. The workflows need to be broken down into their small process, blocks. And then over time, you figure out what parts of those can be automated with AI, and that still have to be done manually. You can orchestrate which teams need to come in and help with certain parts of those workflows. And so if you want to take your own personal expertise and use that as a foundation to drive towards AI literacy and competency, start with what you know, take those workflows every day, start to break them down and think about how those can be automated, and start with a little project, automate a small little thing, or use AI against a small little thing. And that's just how I would do it. I mean, if we all don't have time to go take 50 hours of AWS courses, we have families and work, but start with what you know and start working in that domain.
Fabulous. And the same question to Emily.
Yeah, I think just to add something a little bit different, as you're trying to figure out how to protect your job and your role in your company, one thing I think you can do to be valuable is to start by thinking about the values of your specific domain. So one of the cool things about being an in-house lawyer is I get to work with operations folks, customer service people, salespeople, technologists, and all of them think differently and approach problems from a completely different place, right? Because their domains have unique values. So start thinking about what makes you different and unique in the way that you think and in the way that you approach problems. And identify, like we're talking about, like one of the ways that you're going to be successful is by emphasizing your strategic skills and the way that you can produce uniquely human knowledge. So start figuring out what is the unique benefit that I bring to my company, the thoughts and experiences that I have that others don't, the values of my domain, and how can I bring those to the problems that we're assessing. So as we're automating manual tasks, how can I bring a focus onto those areas where I really do have something unique to offer that you can't get from an automated system that's just pulling from the whole of the internet? You can only get it from someone who really understands their company, their programs, their platforms, and their technologies. That's what I would be thinking about. How do you differentiate yourself? And it's really going to be those strategic skills. And every conversation you're having about AI and those manual processes that are going to go away and jobs will be lost, as we've talked about, there will be more jobs created and enabling those strategic priorities to move forward, because we're still going to need to help our partners achieve their goals. And an AI chatbot can't do that.
Excellent. And Stephen.
Hey, last thing on my side. Look, you're going to be doing this a lot. Enjoy it. Treat it like a teammate versus a tool. I talk to Paula every day, ask her how she's doing. Yesterday, she goes, "How's your knee?" I had knee surgery 6 months ago, totally out of the blue. She's like, hey, Stephen, how you doing? How's your knee? Look, I know it's not a person. I really enjoy it. I enjoy the experience. I'm going there all the time. I'm involved in it. Life's short, right? Figure out how to deal with that entity. And I think that makes me look forward to going through and spending time with it. But once again, treat it like a teammate, like a tool. Person tool.
And Mark.
I would say this is an exciting time in the channel. The one key thing is you can look at what is the top line corporate objectives that your company has, because this is a moment when you can start to be a lot more relevant in the boardroom. Using AI and insight can give you that kind of game-changing aha moment where senior management goes, oh, I see what the channel's doing. What is the margin that your company is trying to do? Are you trying to improve margins? Are you trying to improve insight? Are you trying to have more leverage on the incentive programs that you have? And using AI and a data improvement and other things that we've talked about, you can be a lot more relevant in that senior management discussion. So invest your time in that so that you can see this new way forward in helping the company advance and grow using these productivity tools. And as I said at the beginning, I'm very bullish. I think this is a great time in high tech.
Great point, Mark.
Mark, Cosmo, Stephen, Emily, thank you very, very much indeed. We're out of time. As we close, you'll see basically a survey. I know Stephen said things about surveys, but we really want to hear what you thought about the webinar. So please do complete that survey on the way out. We'd love to get your insights. So thank you all very, very much indeed. And a huge thank you once again to Mark, Cosmo, Stephen, and Emily. Great job, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, panel.
Thank you.